Hello, it's Tracy and welcome back. This week we are doing thrift flips. Now, last episode we went off to the charity shops and we found lots of things. It was a huge haul, so we're going to be doing the makeovers this week. We went off to a town called East Grinstead here in Sussex, England, and it had lots of interesting facts, including John Travolta and this KFC. We also popped into a few of my favourite charity shops and to the auctions. Now, we're going to start off with the first find, which were these two picture frames. Now, I say frames because that's what caught my eye. I wasn't really interested in the canvases. It was the frames that I really wanted. And I thought the price point was very reasonable, £50 for this big one and then £30 for the smaller one. The gold finish is not really my personal taste. I know lots of you really love these frames as they are, but I do believe you've got to adapt your finds to suit your personal taste. I'm a great believer that everything in your home should make you smile, regardless of what it does to anybody else. Now, let's get these canvases out of the frames. Quick tip for you here, if you ever have a screw that the head is a bit mullered, then take a screwdriver and hammer it into the screw. Works every time. Whenever I'm taking anything apart, I always save the bits that I take off because you never know when you need a what's-it or a thingamajig. In the last episode, I did say that my original intention was to paint over the canvases. I had a few viewers that gave me tips on how to take them off the frames and flip them over so you keep the original painting and paint on the back. A lovely viewer, Soraya, my lovely regular viewer, she's an artist, she actually offered to paint the canvases for me if I sent them to her, and she would send them back. So kind. What I've actually decided to do is donate them back to the charity shop so they can sell them and make some more money from them. If you're new here, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Tracy, and this is Bertie, my furry supervisor, who quite often likes to do the butt scratch dance. I've just got to say, these frames are surprisingly heavy, but I've managed to get this second canvas out. So here we go. These are the frames we're going to be working on. As with pretty much everything I upcycle, I always like to start on the back, on the underneath. And on these frames, I'm going to be using Annie Sloan chalk paint, one of my favourites, in Enfleur. I'm going to do 2 coats, but I'm going to do them very rough coats. So lots of different brush strokes, different directions, missing bits. So it's not perfect. I love to play around when I'm doing a piece, and I'm using a heat gun here. You could use a hairdryer, but I like to play about with drying paint quite quickly, where I've maybe overloaded it deliberately to try and get a crackling effect. It's all about having fun, and you'll often see me with more than one brush in my hand. I'm going to change the colorway now with wax rather than bringing out other paint colors, because I've done a very broken paint effect with the brown, with the Enfleur. You can see little pops of a gray color that was on there, little pops of the gold, some darker colors. And then just to give it more depth, more interest, I'm adding dark wax. I've added wax to the back as well, because quite often I layer up pieces. So these could well appear in front of a mirror, which obviously would show the reflection of the back. Now I'm going to leave these to dry, but we will be revisiting them later in the video. Time for the next project, and it's this £20 floor lamp. I don't have any worries about buying electrical items from the charity shops around me, because they always do an electrical safety test on them first, so you know that they're safe to use. Now, let's get this apart and see what we're dealing with. So from the label underneath, we can see that it's oak and it's clearly modern. I am going to be doing something with the flex, and I'm going to make sure that I get all these sticky labels off, and then we'll get that cord sorted after we've painted the lamp. And I say painted because I did try to break that varnish that's on there, and it just was really tough. For something of this age, which is no age at all, it really wasn't worth my while stripping all of that down. So a good wash and then out with the old white. And don't be thinking this is just going to be an ordinary plain white lamp. It's not. After a good coat of clear and before that wax dries, I'm then going to add the dark wax. Now you could leave the brass lamp holder exactly as it is, but I'm going to do something a little different. I popped the original bulb in just to make sure that I had that push click clack on off switch in the right position, so I could then completely finish doing that wrap. Now onto the flex, and I'm going to wrap that whole ugly length of wire in coir bean string. I link it below in the description box. Okay, confession time, bit of a boo-boo. The flex then turned out to be too thick to sit underneath the bottom of the lamp. So I actually found some drawer pulls and glued them to the existing feet. That then meant that it was elevated and there was plenty of room for that flex to move about underneath. I'm going to let this whole thing dry and we're going to come back and see it styled at the end of the video. Next up is this amazing pine table. Now it was just £10, could not believe the price of it. It was a little bit of a gamble because the legs weren't actually attached. So from the looks of it, everything was there. So let's see what we can do with it. Now I wasn't bothered at all that the end of the legs looked a little bit mullered because I plan on turning this into a coffee table. Now I want the overall height of the coffee table to be 15 inches. The actual top is an inch thick, so I'm going to cut the legs at 14 inches from the top. And I found the easiest way to get a nice straight cut is with a miter box. Now if you've got an old saw, then a quick tip is give it a squirt of WD-40 before you start to cut, and it'll be like a hot knife through butter. Ta-da! We have a coffee table. Now at this point you could finish it however it would suit your personal decor. For me, I would like this to go out onto the cottage veranda. So I've taken some of those little leg offcuts and I've sanded down just one side, and with these three paints I'm going to do a little bit of a test. I'm going to do it as a wash and see which tone is going to work in the area that I want to place the table. Oh, and the furry supervisor, yes, he's playing hide and seek with my son Giles there. To cover the top quickly, I've switched to a block brush, and I found this one in Home Bargains. It was only £2.99. It was so good that I've actually been back and bought quite a few of them. They are amazing. You can get them on Amazon. I'll link them below, but if you can get to a Home Bargains in the UK, they are super cheap. Now, to protect this chalk paint from the weather, because it's going out on the veranda, I'm going to use the Annie Sloan lacquer. Now, I have got a video on how to do this because it can be a little bit of a tricky dicky. So I'll link that one below, and it's where I do the table and chairs in the kitchen. So after 2 coats and 24 hours to dry, we're good to take it to the veranda. Now to style the table, let's do a few more flips. This wooden bowl was just £7. It was really quite dark. It looks a lot lighter on film here, but it was a very dark colour. And it was good quality, it was very heavy, so it had to come home. And now we're going to try and lighten it. I'm going to use oven cleaner. Let's see if that can work. I repeated the process twice and then left it on the range overnight to dry. And miraculously, it went a lovely light shade. Super happy with that. So I think we just need to do a couple of other makeovers and then we'll see where that's going to end up. Yes, it's rolling pin obsession time. I'm always on the lookout for rolling pins. There are lots of lovely ways you can finish these, but I like to just lighten them. So once I've got the little stickies off, they need to be sanded back because they're normally covered in a wax or an oil. So in order to do what I want to do to them, I do need to remove that surface. Now, you can tell we're moving into autumn. Look at this weather. We're going to have to pull further back into the garage, into the dry. Now I've got these sanded back and I'm going to finish them in Osmo white oil stain. I've had this tin a long time, as you can tell. A little goes a long way. So it's not the cheapest product to buy, but it does last a long time. They also do an excellent top oil, so you can use this on your countertops, on your chopping boards, on your rolling pins, and it makes them food safe. Once I've brushed the oil stain all over, I then use a rag and pull back, take off the excess. The great thing about this product is that you can control the colour, so the longer you leave it on for, the deeper the shade. I let it dry overnight, add the top oil, and then we're ready to style. Ooh, I do love a big bowl, especially when I can pick them up for this price, just £2. Now the reason being was that it had a big chip in it. So even if they've got cracks and bits missing, bad repairs, we can do something with those. Now I'm not personally in love with this pattern, so I have no qualms about doing what I'm about to do to this. Yes, the filler's coming out. I'm going to do my faux stone effect on it. Now I've got all my herbs and spices out here. I've got soil, grout, 2 different types of cinnamon, cayenne pepper, coffee, and some mixed herbs. And I think for the purposes of this bowl, I'm just going to go with 2 ingredients today. I'm going to go with the coffee and the herbs. I'm also going to use some matte lacquer. Now, I don't normally coat these in lacquer, but I quite fancy this big bowl going out onto the cottage veranda. And whilst it's not going to be directly impacted by the weather because it is very much undercover, I do want to put the lacquer on just to afford it a little bit of protection because this is not designed for outdoor use. I've actually got a separate video on products to use if you want to do your pots and so on outside. So do check that one out. I will list it below if you're interested. to finish, I do like to switch to clean gloves and then I compress everything flat. I leave it to dry on the range overnight, and then once it's completely dry, take it outside and give it a really good coat of the matte lacquer. It will lighten overnight as well. If you saw the last episode, then you'll recognise this table mat. It was a set of 4 that I picked up in HomeSense for just £9.99. So with a little bit of imagination, 3 disparate items, a table, 2 bowls, can now work in harmony together and look a lot more expensive than you and I both know they were. And because I use the same tones throughout the whole of the property, it means that they don't just work together, they can work in all the rooms, in all the different vignettes that I create. Well, you join me in the winter sitting room now. It's a room that we use on an evening in the winter. That's why we pretentiously call it the winter sitting room. I love to give rooms different names. So this reveal is 3 in 1. I had a spot in mind for the lamp, which I showed in the last video. And this was the area. And in that corner there at the back, it was just looking a little bit empty. So I've done a few more things. Come and see. And here we go. I've popped in a bulb, a nice tall thin one. I think they're called test tube bulbs. They're from Amazon and I'll drop a link below. The flex wasn't quite long enough to reach the socket behind the sofa, so I've used an extension lead. You can't see it, and it just means that I don't have to faff about here. I can just switch it on and off from the wall. Now, let me show you some other things I put in this corner. So the mirror, this I got from auction, £25 the hammer came down at. Absolutely love it. Love the mottling effect on it. And all I've done is given it a really good wash. In front of there, I've put the big twig wreath. I got several of these, I think it was last year actually, or the beginning of this year, but I love them. And I just love the tones and the way everything coordinates here and pulls together. Now the picture frames, you may have noticed those. I have a cunning plan for these. They've been drying in the office. I've brought them into here. But let me tell you what my cunning plan is. To use them in this corner of the snug. So the big one to just prop it against the wall sat on top of that console table. However, that mirror is going to have to be lowered down, which means there's drilling and filling of holes. The square one I'm thinking of actually fixing to the wall with the head in the middle of it, or should I switch maybe the head and the mirror around? Or do you think the frames are maybe too dark for that spot? In the meantime, they're going to sit in here, and I quite like them layered up against the bookcase. What do you think? Do you think I should maybe leave them here, or shall I do what I was saying in the snug? Well, talking about the snug, that's going to be decorated for autumn soon. So fall decorating is coming big time. That starts next episode. And we're going to run all the way through till the start of Christmas decorating. There's going to be so much decorating. So much fun. Such fun.